Your step is hell. Across America, there are giant steel mills where men harness fire to create molten iron that powers engines, steel frames, and the pillars that support entire cities. At the Caterpillar Mapleton plant in Illinois, iron is heated to nearly 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit, 1,430 degrees Celsius, hotter than lava, enough to instantly obliterate human tissue. The factory floor here is a death zone. One wrong step, and you're reduced to ash. So every breath, every movement must be precise, every move. On the 2nd of June, a 39-year-old man entered his 5th shift at his new job. Little did he know, it would also be his last. He was given a seemingly simple task. Take a sample of molten iron for testing. He turned the giant metal wheel, and a stream of red-hot steel poured down from the tank like lava. The air was thick with the smell of burning metal, and the heat was enough to burn anything that dared to come near. He bent down, approaching the edge of the boiling iron stream. Droplets of fire flew everywhere, and just one touch was enough to obliterate his entire face. But this time, he was safe. After taking the sample, he turned and walked away, thinking he had overcome the danger. Then disaster struck, a slip, a momentary loss of balance, and his body fell back into the boiling steel tank. In a terrifying moment, half of his body was swallowed by the orange pit. He struggled, clawed, tried to escape, but it was hopeless. The liquid fire rolled, tearing his flesh in an instant. Just one breath later, the entire half of his body disappeared into the abyss of metal. The witnesses were stunned. No one could believe what they saw. Part of his body was still on the steel floor, while the other had been consumed by the inferno. By the time the emergency crew arrived, it was too late. The plant was shut down immediately. An investigation began, and the question rang out like an accusation. Why was a man who had been on the job for less than 5 days in one of the most dangerous areas of the plant? This wasn't the first time. Just a year earlier, another worker had died in a similar way, in this very place. And now, another life cut short, in the most brutal way imaginable. In blast furnaces like these, safety isn't just a rule. It's a matter of life and death. When you're under a sea of boiling metal, you have 2 choices: take the right step or never take the step at all. Accident in machinery. It was a hot afternoon at the Whitworth, Texas, sawmill. The air was thick with the smell of freshly cut pine, the hum of machinery, and the sweat on the faces of the workers. The machine stopped abruptly. Inside, the logs were jammed, blocking the entire production line. To free them, they reached for the heavy steel cable, looped through the gears. They pulled, jerked, adjusted, hoping to break the jam, but the more they pulled, the more the cable tightened, shaking like a giant bow about to snap. Then everything changed. A sharp, cold sound, like a knife blade, crack. The cable snapped. All the pent-up energy was released in an instant. It whipped through the air, fast as a bullet, sharp as a blade. The blow turned the entire construction site into hell. In a millisecond, 4 men standing nearby were slashed across the neck. The heads were separated from their bodies, and their bodies remained in the same working position for a few more seconds, before collapsing in absolute silence. The 5th person was thrown aside, his leg bones shattered, blood splattered all over the floor. The scene was deathly silent. Sawdust, hard hats, and lifeless bodies were scattered. The remaining workers were stunned, unable to believe that their colleagues had just been wiped out in a single breath. When the rescue team arrived, all they could do was take one survivor with crippled legs to the hospital. The remaining 4 never returned home. The accident became a ghost that haunted the sawmill. Just one cable pulled too far, and 5 families were forever torn apart. In industrial plants, mistakes never happen twice. A small detail, a seemingly harmless wire, can also become a blade that takes a life in the blink of an eye. Construction site accident. It's 2019 in Bangkok, Thailand, and a 39-year-old construction worker is about to have the kind of day that makes horror movies look like cartoons. The man's just walking across the site, probably daydreaming about dinner when his boot catches, and he slips. Normally, a fall means a twisted ankle, or maybe a trip to the clinic. But fate? Fate had other plans. Instead of landing on dusty concrete, he crashes straight onto an upright steel rebar. Not a small piece either. This massive rod punches through his groin and blasts out his back, skewering him like a kebab straight off a street grill. And the cruel twist? He's fully conscious. Not a blackout, not even a moment of mercy. He is alive, screaming, every nerve in his torso lit up like fireworks on New Year's Eve. His coworkers freeze in shock before scrambling. They can't move him, can't even touch the rod. It's the only thing stopping him from bleeding out instantly. So, emergency crews are called. But they can't just pull it out. No, they spend over 3 hours carefully sawing the rebar while he's still impaled, his screams echoing across the site. 3 hours of pain so raw, it makes torture chambers look humane. When they finally transport him, the rod's still in his body. Imagine being in an ambulance, bouncing over potholes, every bump shoving cold steel deeper inside you. At the hospital, surgeons battle for hours, dodging organs, cutting through muscle, racing against infection and blood loss. Somehow, by some miracle, he survives. But survival has a price. He's left partially paralyzed, living with chronic agony that turns every day into punishment. For his coworkers, the image never fades. A man hanging on a rod, still alive, begging for it to stop. Because in construction, death doesn't always come quick. Sometimes, it keeps you alive, just long enough to make you wish it hadn't. The last accident. A construction worker, known only in reports as Mr. X, was just another guy on the job with a tool in hand. Nothing unusual, just him and his high-powered nail gun. You've seen these things before, right? The ones that blast nails through thick wood like it's paper. Maybe you've even thought, hey, how dangerous could it really be? Well, let me tell you, this tool turned into the stuff of nightmares. At first, everything seemed fine. A few clicks, a few nails, business as usual. Then, without warning, the gun went haywire. Not your regular jam. No, this machine decided to go full Rambo mode. The safety completely failed, and suddenly the nail gun transformed into a fully automatic death machine. In seconds, it sprayed nails like a goddamn machine gun. 320 nails. Let that sink in. Within moments, his coworkers found him collapsed. His face and torso transformed into something unrecognizable, like a pincushion dragged straight from hell. Nails pierced his cheeks, his jaw, his neck, even his eyes. He was instantly blinded. Some nails sank straight into his skull, embedding deep inside his brain. His entire head looked less like a human face and more like a grotesque art project gone horribly wrong. At the hospital, the nightmare only continued. Surgeons quickly realized they couldn't put him under full anesthesia. Too risky. Nails were lodged in his brain, and knocking him out completely might have killed him on the spot. So, they dulled the pain just enough to keep him alive, but he was still semi-conscious. Imagine that, lying on a table, feeling and hearing nails being pulled from your skull one by one. The scraping of metal against bone. The pop as pressure released. Every second of it burned into his memory. Somehow, miraculously, he lived. But survival wasn't victory. he emerged permanently blind, his face forever disfigured, and with trauma most of us can't even fathom. The case was so brutal it forced China to overhaul nail gun safety regulations. A small consolation. For Mr. X, though, the only legacy was this: a lifetime trapped in the body of a man who once got turned into a human pincushion.